Have you ever been in a meeting, a presentation, or even just a conversation where you had a brilliant idea, a crucial point to make, but the words that came out just felt flat? You know that sinking feeling. The one where you can almost hear yourself speaking in real time, knowing that the words you're using are completely failing to capture the weight of your thoughts. It's that frustration of reaching for a powerful, precise word, but only finding a bland, generic one. You end up saying things like, "We got through some problems," when what you really did felt heroic. You describe a jaw-dropping sunset as nice, and the magic of the moment just evaporates. You walk away from that conversation feeling unseen and misunderstood. You replay it in your head, thinking, if only I'd said it differently. If only I had the right words. That feeling isn't just about sounding smart. It's about impact. It's about confidence. It's about feeling like you're finally doing justice to your own ideas. Trust me, I used to live in that state of frustration. My words felt like a fleet of rowboats when I needed a battleship. I felt like my ideas were being dismissed, not because they were weak, but because the language I used to dress them up was threadbare. It was a constant source of anxiety. I worried I sounded less intelligent, less capable, and less confident than I knew I was. This feeling literally held me back, from speaking up, from chasing leadership roles, from just fully expressing myself. And then, I stumbled upon a technique that changed everything. It was this counterintuitive, almost laughably simple idea that flew in the face of everything I thought I knew about building a vocabulary. And it all starts with just one word. Look, in this video, I'm not going to throw a long list of fancy words at you. I'm not going to tell you to read the dictionary for an hour a day. Who has time for that? I'm going to show you a powerful, sustainable way to transform your vocabulary, your articulation, and your confidence, all by focusing on one single word at a time. This isn't about sounding smarter. It's about learning to think with more clarity, speak with more precision, and communicate with an impact you can actually feel. So, how do most of us try to improve our vocabulary? Let's be honest, we've all been there. You find a list online titled 50 Words to Make You Sound Smarter. You scan it, you see words like ephemeral, ubiquitous, pulchritudinous. You might even cram a few definitions into your brain using flashcards. For a moment, you feel productive. But what happens a week later? Those words, if you remember them at all, feel foreign. They're like ill-fitting clothes you borrowed from someone else. You try to force one into a sentence, and it just lands with a thud, sounding unnatural and pretentious. Why? Because you haven't learned the word. You've only memorized its definition. This is the big flaw in the list method. It's all about breadth over depth, and it just doesn't work for long-term, natural use. It's like trying to build a skyscraper by scattering 1,000 bricks on the ground. Sure, you've got the materials, but there's no structure, no foundation, and no clue how they all connect. Rote memorization gives you the definition, but it doesn't give you the word's soul. It doesn't teach you its nuance, its connotations, its rhythm, or the situations where it truly shines. And so, the words never really make it into your active vocabulary, and you slide right back into using the same old, comfortable, but uninspiring language. You get stuck in that linguistic purgatory of good, bad, nice, and interesting. The technique we're exploring today is the exact opposite. It's a deep dive method. It's all about depth over breadth. Instead of learning 50 words superficially, we're going to learn one word profoundly. We're going to take a single, powerful word, pull it apart, live with it, and play with it until it becomes a seamless part of how you think and speak. This works because it respects how our brains actually learn, through connection, context, and story. By deeply understanding one word, you're not just adding one item to your vocabulary, you're building a rich, interconnected web around that word, a network of synonyms, antonyms, and stories. This one deep dive becomes an anchor, making it exponentially easier to learn related words. You're not just collecting bricks anymore, you're building a fully furnished foundational wing of your linguistic skyscraper. And once that foundation is strong, expanding becomes effortless. The success of this whole thing hinges on this first step, choosing the right word. This is not about picking the most obscure, complicated word you can find to sound like a walking thesaurus. The goal is to choose a word that is both aspirational and incredibly practical. A word that will actually do some heavy lifting for you. So, what makes for a perfect deep dive word? I look for 3 things. First, the word must have high utility. This means it should be a Swiss Army knife, useful in all sorts of contexts, at work, in an essay, or just talking with friends. A word like sesquipedalian, which means using long words, is fun. But it's a party trick. You might use it once a year. Compare that to a word like catalyst, articulate, or intrinsic. You could use those everywhere. You want a workhorse, not a show pony? Second, the word should be resonant. It needs to connect with you personally. A quality you want to embody, a goal you're working toward, or an idea you're always trying to express. If you're a leader, you might choose galvanize or stewardship. If you're focused on personal growth, maybe equanimity or metamorphosis. When the word means something to you, learning it stops being a chore and starts becoming part of your identity. Third, the ideal word is slightly out of reach. This is the sweet spot. You're looking for a word you recognize when you read it, but you don't use it naturally in your own speech. It's familiar enough that it isn't totally intimidating, but new enough that it represents real growth. Choose a word you already use, and there's no challenge. Choose a word that's completely alien, and you'll just get discouraged. You're aiming for that perfect zone of being challenged, but not overwhelmed. For example, a bad choice is very. Total utility, but zero growth. Another bad choice, at least to start, might be flocanosin hilipilification, the act of seeing something as worthless. It's a great trivia answer, but it has almost zero utility for 99.9% of us. A good choice? How about the word overcome? It's perfect. It has massive utility in both professional and personal stories. It resonates with feelings of strength and resilience. And for many of us, it's right in that sweet spot. We know what it means, but we often default to simpler phrases like got through it or dealt with it. Other great choices could be nuance, coherent, substantiate, efficacy, or poignant. Each one is a powerful tool. So your first task is to become a word curator. Pay attention. When you read or hear a word that makes you pause and think, "Ooh, that's a good word," write it down. Keep a running list. Then, once a week or so, look at your list and pick just one that meets these 3 criteria. Okay. That's your word. You've chosen your word. Now the real fun begins. This is the deep dive. This is where we go way beyond a simple definition and build that rich mental map. We're going to treat this word like an archaeological dig, carefully unearthing every layer of its meaning. Let's use our word, overcome, and put it under the microscope. We start with the dictionary, but we don't stop there. A dictionary will tell you overcome means to defeat an obstacle. That's fine, but it's boring. Let's look at the nuance. The word overcome implies a real struggle. It suggests the challenge was significant and required effort and persistence. It's not just about winning. It's about prevailing in spite of the difficulty. That's why it hits harder than I beat the challenge. Beating can sound casual. Overcoming signals an earned victory. It tells a miniature story of struggle and triumph all in one word. There's also the emotional side. You can be overcome with grief or overcome with joy. In that sense, it means to be overwhelmed. Understanding both the active, conquering meaning and the passive, overwhelming meaning gives you a full picture of its power. So, literally, to overcome means to come over something, Picture a physical wall. To overcome it, you have to climb up, go across, and land on the other side. This simple physical metaphor is what gives the word its intuitive power. When you say you overcame an obstacle, you're tapping into this ancient, visceral image of getting over a barrier. That story makes the word stick. Okay, this part is my favorite, and it might be the most powerful piece of the deep dive. Looking at synonyms doesn't just give you alternatives, it teaches you precision. By comparing overcome to its relatives, you learn to pick the exact right word for the moment. Let's build its family tree. Conquer. This one feels more military. It implies total mastery over an external enemy. You conquer an army. It's more forceful than overcome. Vanquish, even more dramatic. Vanquish means to utterly defeat someone, leaving them helpless. It has an epic, literary feel. A hero vanquishes a dragon, probably overkill for a weekly status meeting. Surmount. This is a beautiful one that connects right back to the etymology. It comes from French, with sur, meaning over, and monter, meaning to climb. You surmount hurdles or obstacles. It sounds incredibly professional and precise when you say, "We surmounted the logistical challenges." Subdue. This implies taming something, bringing it under control. You subdue your anger or subdue a rebellious feeling. It's about quieting something powerful, not outright defeating it. See the richness here? You didn't just learn overcome. You now have a whole palette. Are you talking about an internal struggle? Overcome is perfect. A total victory. Conquer. A specific barrier you climbed over. Surmount is elegant. Knowing the opposite sharpens the meaning. Obvious ones are fail or lose. But let's find better ones. Succumb. This is a fantastic antonym. It means to fail to resist pressure or temptation. You succumb to an illness. It implies giving in. Capitulate. This is more formal. It means to surrender, often after a negotiation. Your mental map is now so much richer. You know what overcome is, and you know exactly what it is not. Are just words that love to hang out together. Learning them is the secret to sounding natural. Your brain already knows that fast goes with food, not quick food. Using the right word pairings signals a real comfort with the language. So who are the friends of overcome? You overcome adversity. You overcome an obstacle. You overcome a challenge. You overcome a fear. You overcome self-doubt. Practice saying those phrases. They just sound right, don't they? Using them makes your speech flow naturally. To take the word out for a spin. The key is to start with low-stakes situations. Don't try to use your new word for the first time in a huge job interview. That's like trying a new song for the first time at Carnegie Hall. You have to rehearse. Start in your own head. Think to yourself using the word, "Okay, I really need to overcome my habit of procrastinating." Use it in a journal. Use it in a low-stakes text or email to a friend. Congrats on the presentation. I know you had to overcome some crazy technical issues. Use it in a casual conversation about a movie or book. The main character had to overcome so much adversity. The goal is to get dozens of small wins. Each time you use it successfully, the neural pathway gets stronger, until the word is just there when you need it. This last one sounds silly, but it works. Sometimes a word feels weird because your mouth isn't used to making the shape. Find a private space, your car, the shower, and just say it. And say the word. Overcome, overcome, overcome. Say its friends. Overcome adversity. Overcome a challenge. Read your practice sentences from the sentence ladder out loud. The goal is to make the physical act of saying the word as comfortable as saying your own name. When it feels physically natural, it will come out effortlessly. By following these 3 steps, choose, deep dive, and integrate, you create a powerful, repeatable system for real, lasting growth. By the way, if you're finding this helpful and you're starting to see how this approach could be a game changer for you, do me a favor, and hit that like button. Let's bring this all the way back. I started by talking about that sinking feeling I used to get. So, how did this one-word method actually fix that? I remember a specific project meeting. We were wrapping up a brutal product launch. We had faced everything: supply chain nightmares, critical bugs, people getting sick. In the past, I would have said something like, "Yeah, it was tough, but we got through the problems and launched on time." It's true, but it's so flat. It completely undersells the heroic effort the team put in. But by this point, I had done a deep dive on the word surmount, a cousin of overcome. I chose it because I wanted to be a leader who could articulate the team's effort in a way that truly honored it. So in that meeting, instead of my old, bland language, I said something like this: "I just want to acknowledge the team's extraordinary work. The logistical hurdles we had to surmount this past month were genuinely significant. We didn't just deal with problems. We systematically overcame each point of resistance. The resilience on display was just remarkable." You could feel the shift in the room. The language wasn't pretentious. It was precise. Surmount perfectly captured that feeling of climbing over barrier after barrier. It validated the team's struggle and celebrated their strength. My point didn't just land, it resonated. It turned a boring update into a moment of real recognition. That's when it clicked for me. The right word at the right time doesn't just change how you sound. It changes how people feel. It changes the impact of your ideas. It turns you from someone who just reports what happened into someone who can shape the meaning of what happened. That is the power I thought becoming more articulate was this impossible task, something reserved for a lucky few. I figured the only way was to memorize lists, a method that always left me feeling frustrated. The turning point was realizing the path to a powerful vocabulary isn't about quantity. It's about quality. It's not how many words you know, but how deeply you know them. The solution wasn't a dictionary, it was a magnifying glass. The process is simple. Choose a resonant, high-utility word that's just a little out of your comfort zone. Do the deep dive. Explore its nuances, its story, its family, and its friends. Practice and integrate. Use the simple exercises to make the word your own. This isn't a magic trick. It's a practice. But it's a practice that puts you in the driver's seat. It transforms the huge, scary task of improving my vocabulary into a manageable, engaging, and incredibly rewarding journey, one word at a time. This is how you build the kind of authentic confidence that makes people listen. Now, it's your turn. I have a challenge for you. Choose one word. Just one. Your first word for your first deep dive. Maybe it's surmount, nuance, or efficacy from this video. Or maybe it's one you heard recently that made you curious. I want you to do two things. First, share your chosen word in the comments below. Let's build a library of powerful words that we, as a community, can master together. Second, and this is the important part, use that word in a sentence in your comment. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is your first, small step in making it your own. Put your learning into action, right now. The journey to becoming a more articulate, confident you begins not with 1,000 words, but with one. Choose yours. Thanks for watching.